Facebook with them talking. No internet? That's no time.
Live from VentureX Studios, it's JP, Kathy, and the crew.
Hey, good Wednesday morning. That's right. It's JP, Kathy, and the crew.
Why are you saying it all weird like that?
Because I want you to do this. I like it when you do this with your teeth.
Yeah, it's
I like it when you do
the
that.
non-smile. Yeah,
love
my
that.
husband knows this look well. I'll be
Now,
like,
you ready for this? You ready for this, though? Guess what? I captured the younger audience because Bree was dying laughing. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I don't know if she
That's
was
all I'm
laughing
saying.
with you. It
I'm
may have
hoping
been
at me.
laughing at you.
Well, I'm hoping. Thank you, Bree. And the crowd goes wild. Well, tell you what, we have got a great Wednesday morning. It's going to be a little cold out there this morning. Watch for temperatures to drop today. Whoa. It's going to get chilly.
Is it?
Yes.
Actually, it did drop.
Yeah, Santiago chilly. We're going to all head there.
No,
Just
it
kidding.
did drop. It's going to be up to 52 today.
Yeah, but it's going to drop, though, because that northern wind's coming through.
Well, not till later.
Well, okay, it's still today. I didn't say this morning. God, you got a lot of wind.
It's typical.
What a
It's
wind.
typical January.
Where is Baby Yoda
It's
at? We need
right here's
Baby
a
Yoda to give you some happy thoughts.
It's typical Texas weather in
You need
January.
happy thoughts. There we go. Now I got happy thoughts.
I'm probably getting in trouble one day for playing these without some kind of copyright or something.
You know,
Oh,
Bree doesn't like it. So
little Baby Yoda.
we have got Dr. Good, as
Okay.
you can see, center stage.
Who's shaking her head
our
going,
pub
"Please."
ed education expert on all things pub ed and advocate for public education as well. So good morning, Dr. Good.
Morning, everyone. How are you?
Man, I'll tell you what, I'm on fire already this morning. I think I had a
He's
steroid
a mess.
shot.
Yeah, he's a mess without coffee. This is scary.
Something like that.
Well, I don't know if you caught the news last night, but you had a major district from around here talk about their grading policies, and I thought we'd maybe bring that up today because the pandemic is causing changes everywhere, right?
Yes.
Fort Worth ISD has now said that they're going to change their grading policy and allow kids to have second chances to retake tests, to redo work and assignments. What do y'all think about that?
Well, I don't know that that's new. I think Fort Worth is behind the times. You know, my daughter's biggest complaint with Allen ISD was the fact that when she went off to college, okay, she failed her first college algebra test. So she went by the professor's office and said, "Hey, man, when does the retake on this?"
Yeah.
And the college professor looked at her and went,
Wah, wah.
"The next test, study harder."
Yeah.
And sent her out of his office, and she almost started crying. She's like, "Dad, Allen ISD disserviced me by letting me always make up my tests that I didn't do well on." I think Fort Worth's behind the ball on this deal. And are they doing their students any good? Are they preparing them for college or life? I don't get a redo on my water bill. Pay it every month or we shut you off.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of that.
Yeah, but these are unusual times, right? And so we don't have teachers at their very best, right? We don't have students in their best environments. Even when they're face-to-face, they're not in a normal school environment right now.
Oh, not at all.
Do we punish the kids by saying we're still going to have strict grading policies even when we're in the midst of a pandemic and nothing is how it used to be?
So, well, let me dial that back though. Again, this is not new. This has been going on for years. Plano ISD had a policy where they would allow redos and makeups without a pandemic. And so my big question is, are colleges going to adjust? Are businesses going to adjust? Are we preparing our high school students? Now, maybe we do it with the lower grades and give them more support and offer them the opportunity to make up those tests or work and show them so that they get the process down, because process is always good. But at high school, are we really doing a disservice, or do they need to pivot and adjust to be ready for what we're doing now? I mean, you're our pub ed specialist. I'm just a big guy with a big mouth.
Yeah, you tell us, Dr. Good, what your expert thoughts are during this time. I'm with JP on, during a regular time. I've never understood that, and both of my kids have been able to. They weren't at private school. They did not have that opportunity. Public school, when they went to high school in Plano ISD, they did have that opportunity from time to time. But now I can understand now, watching my son with the inability to interact like he used to with his teachers, and he really counted on that to take him to the next level, to clarify things. Sometimes when it takes somebody 24 hours to get back to you in an email, that's a problem.
So, I've always been an odd duck when it comes to opinions about things, whether in real life or
Yes.
my private life, my personal life. So I always thought that we had a misalignment between the high schools and the colleges, because we do have, for example, and Kathy, you can identify with this more than almost anybody. You've had two kids go through PBL school.
Right.
And what does PBL school teach you? It teaches you to work in a group, to work together, to collaborate, to learn how to present together as a group, to come to consensus, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And what if you send those little kiddos off to some colleges? It's lecture, it's 100 people in the room, it's a TA grading, you're lucky to ever talk to the professor. That's a huge misalignment, especially if our businesses are telling us that the PBL model is what they want to have us train their kids in preparation for the workplace, and then they get to the colleges.
Right.
So maybe instead of saying we need to force the high schools to be more like colleges, maybe we need to have that discussion
With the colleges.
Conversation with the colleges. And as you were talking, I was wondering, I wonder if I need to find a couple of college professors, especially at Collin College right now,
That's a
and
great
ask how
idea.
the pandemic has impacted them. You want me to try to do that?
Yes,
tonight?
I think that would be fantastic. We can go through either Fred Moses or Dr. Bob Collins, and who I know you're friends with both of them, and
Or the
get
president
some
of the college,
folks.
Mac and
Yeah.
Everybody's
So,
everybody.
so we've got those are
And
good.
Bree wants to help too, Dr. Good.
Oh, and Bree's raising her hand. She was nodding when you were talking about the disconnect. And she is a college student, but she's also working in the real world, runs her own trucking company. I do know that my kids, as far as their skills working with a superior, working in groups, doing presentation, PBL schools have been a huge help to them. So kind of in the real world, PBL is what you need. But you're right. Then if you do a stop, you start PBL and then you stop it in college and then you start it again when you get out in the workforce, that may not make sense.
There's a disconnect there.
Yeah.
So and I'm going to be on this forum next February 11th with I think he is Bob King, if I'm remembering correctly, the head of the new vocational college in Allen. And then I will also be on the panel with the Robin something from Allen.
Okay.
And
Robin Bullock, probably.
Bullock, yes, Robin Bullock, thank you. And so we'll be talking about that transition period, and I think maybe grading needs to be part of that discussion.
I think so. You're making me think. It is kind of a stark reality when you go to a lecture style class. I know it was for my daughter when she went off to college for the first year. It was kind of jarring because she had 4 years of getting used to another type of learning where she thrived. Yeah.
Now, PBL probably helped her learn how to navigate, manage her college professors, because that's one thing that...
Well, she had great communication with them. She also had great research skills.
And so one of the things PBL does is it helps you get more comfortable working with adults, presenting to adults, sort of having conversations with adults around professional dialogue. And I'm sure those skills probably helped when they got to college, even if college wasn't the same PBL type of environment, as far as comfortableness talking to their college professors. Yeah. But still, I think as you all were talking, that's something that I haven't explored a lot. I've been sort of busy with my K-12 world, but now you've made me curious. And so I think we need to have some input from the colleges to see how have they changed.
Yep.
So I
Agree.
guess, again, I guess I go back to this as well, Dr. Good. And maybe turning 49 has made me way old.
No, you're only 49, a
well-
mere
Stop it.
49.
But this has maybe
Stop it
made me
already.
way old, though, in my thought process. How is it we have gone through such a decline in our world ranking educationally as we have gotten further and further and further away from those educational roots and values that had us at number 2, number 1, number 3 in the world in mathematics, science, engineering?
Two things. One is, first of all, other countries do not test every single kid like we do. First, let's get the secret out on the
Yep.
table. The United States is about the only country that tests every single kid. That even your low functioning special ed, your second language, they're forced to,
Everything, yeah.
and those
everyone.
are counted in all of those scores. That's number one. Number two is we have so many kids from poverty, and really funding has not kept up with the type of kids that we are working with. We're working with second language. We're working with those special kids, dyslexia. And remember, it's just the last legislative session that dyslexia got a little bit of money. We had unfunded mandates all of these decades around dyslexia. We had to do it and didn't get paid for it. So there are so many things that we've had to do as school districts that other districts around the world, other countries around the world haven't had to do. They're in Russia and China, they don't just do one type of math every year. I mean, that is something that we have to wrap our brains around. They have several classes of math every year to get them very mathematically inclined. We don't do that. We have algebra 1 in ninth grade, and then we do either geometry or algebra 2, depending on the district. You see what I'm saying? I mean, we isolate, and so we chunk out our math so that it becomes just another something on the checklist to get through versus embracing math as a total concept that we need to help kids embrace and understand its place in how it works in the world that we live in.
Right.
So it's really apples and oranges when we put our kids up against the rest of the world.
Right.
And oftentimes, John, when our math scores are going up against math scores in China and Russia, it's only against their strongest math kids. And so, Singapore, I believe, always scores the highest. But again, that focus on just math and science in certain countries and to the detriment of the other electives and so forth has caused those countries to have to look to us to find inventions for them to improve on. And that's a well-known, that Korea and China, they've looked to us to invent things, right, in the tech world. And then what do? Then they take them to the next level. But because of the type of scientific and mathematical, I don't want to say, the focus has been so strong in one area that they absolutely kill some of that whole child creativity stuff that helps kids become creative geniuses in their area.
Right.
So, matter of fact, I will tell you, I remember this when I became a principal in 2001 to 4. I remember reading articles about Japan trying to get their people to understand that 6-day school and not having arts in the schools was not helping their kids. And so what they did is they forced parents to have their kids take performing arts and the arts and so forth in school. And you know what those Japanese parents did? They added tutoring because of the free colleges, right? Everybody's trying to get into the free college. There's a lot of status around that in some Asian countries.
Exactly, yes.
And so to the detriment of the arts. And so lots of reasons. We just can't say that the United States has slipped because we have, but we aren't judged fairly or equally in the same way against those other countries.
Well, and we've got a comment real quick from Nathan.
We've got a couple comments.
Yeah, I mean, people are really globbing on to this. I mean, this is a great conversation and probably one we need to visit again and again over the next, in particular, 6 months or so. But Nathan says, I've been to 5 colleges in 3 states, 1 online, and all are different. I've had children in 2 high schools, 2 different states, very different. Just as jobs will change in the workforce, children need to learn to adapt. Public schools are herding cattle to get them through a mandated system. Man, there's a lot of truth to that. Some of this lies at home, not the differentiated system. Parents need to be held accountable as well. There's some wisdom in his comment, and especially with parents being held accountable now that your kid is either online the whole entire time or there's more opportunity to engage with your kid. Now you're aware because you did have that time at home with them. What do you think about that?
Well, of course, anytime we can get parents to help us with kids, and it's not, let's pretend the pandemic didn't happen. I'd be saying the exact same thing. Anytime you have parents who have trained their little babies to hear them read, and the parents have used different voices, and the parents have asked them questions about the main character and where's the setting, and why do you think the character did this, and what do you think would have happened if the ending had changed, and how would you have changed it? All of that. If parents would just do that as kids are growing up, they would so help us bring readers to us, right?
Right.
Those are the type of things that we would love parents to do. Unfortunately, the state of Texas has said we cannot hold parents accountable to anything. Matter of fact, I don't know if you know this, but parents don't have to bring us their kids until the kids are 6 years old. Kids
Right.
do not have to come to school till first grade, 6 years old, and they don't have to bring them reading. And that's what we try to explain, that when the kid comes in, and I have a first grade teacher who says, "Oh my gosh, this child has never been in school, can't read," and I say, "Okay, well we know that about that child. Now what are you going to do?" I mean, that's just hard to understand, that as much as we'd like to hold parents accountable, we can't. And so anything they do for us is gravy. And so anytime that we can get parents trained to give us more gravy, that benefits the
Well,
child.
and Dr. Good, sorry, JP, real quick, the reading thing, and I would like one of the Wednesdays on our show for you just to talk about the importance of reading to your child. You can work 2 or 3 jobs. There's still, there's at least 15 minutes twice a week that you can spend time sitting down with a book with your child, even if you have to go to the public library and check one out, or go to Half Price Books and get one for like 50 cents. I'm mortified, and I'm hearing this more and more, not so much when my kids were in school, but more and more that schools are getting kids who 5, 6 years old don't even know how to crack open a book. There's something has gone horribly wrong with society if we're at that point.
Well, again, we've gotten self-righteously busy. Especially if you work in poverty communities where the parents are just into surviving. And, the Maslow thing just tells you book reading is not on that lower tier. And so,
that's just...
So, Dr. Good, other comments coming off the feed. Michelle goes on to say that her daughter said that there's a huge difference between online learning versus classroom learning. Prefers the classroom. She hated online learning. Nathan continued to say, my daughter's a high school teacher. The kids aren't there to learn. They are there because they have to be. Parents do not care. Gail says, my daughter went to UTA, UTD, and is now at BYU. BYU is beyond superior, and the other two were not just difficult to navigate, but professors weren't accessible.
Oh, interesting.
And then, and then another comment, my son said online, he feels like he's learning nothing new, and that I think is coming from our friend Kathy.
That was me.
You know, I guess here's my thing, Dr. Good, and we don't have much time left because we've got a hard stop with our Senate Minute coming up with Senator Angela Paxton.
Dr. Good's going to stay on to say hi to her real quick.
Right.
They're friends.
So I guess, and we really do need to crack this nut and really have this conversation, this hard conversation. I feel like education is a big old wheel. And in some spokes, we're doing a great job. In other spokes, we're not doing such a great job, and we're doing a disservice to our kids. I think in speaking with education, we need to break it up into that big wheel or pie chart, whatever we want to call it, and really start to assess what are we doing well, what are we not doing well, and what are we doing as a disservice to our students, what are we doing as a service to our students, and really blow that up because, I guess I come from the old school with athletics, speech and debate, FBLA. It was, here's the task at hand and you have to get it done. You need to figure it out. Here's your guidance. And it was like when I was on the football field, I didn't get a retake of the fourth down. When it was 4th and 1, if I didn't make it, we turned the ball over. It wasn't, well, okay, I know you guys didn't pass your test real well, so we're going to test you one more time. We're going to give you a retake. No, the retake was the defense has got to take the field and take the ball back. And in speech and debate, I didn't get a second cross-examination. I either got it right the first time or I got scored down for it. And at what point, and I guess I'm speaking from a competitive standpoint, at what point do we decrease our ability to compete at the next level, whether it's college, trade school, or business, by giving redos and takeovers? Or am I,
Go
like I said, am I
ahead
old?
and write that down. Write that down. We sure don't have time for that today. And I sure have time, though, to say hello to Senator Angela Paxton and to say thank you. And Angela, you don't know this
hold
probably,
on one
but
second, Dr. Good. I want to
do.
make sure we've got Senator Paxton, but she's sideways.
But she can,
No.
but she can still
There
hear.
you go. Now
Angela,
She is
You
sideways
don't
with
know
bad
this.
policy,
Wait,
by
is it
golly.
better?
you're good now, Angela.
She's sideways with bad policy. She's just not going to have
Nobody's
it.
as good as Dr. Good, though.
There you go.
so Angela, you don't know this, but I wrote your office a couple of days, well, maybe 3 days ago, and I asked for you all to consider bumping teachers to the head of the line, and your office got back to me within 48 hours, and I want to thank you for that. You are a rare bird for that, and because I write people, I write and I want to thank you for that. Unfortunately, you weren't real firm about the fact that you guys can do that yet, but I think it's important that I model, because I'm not only using my rights as a constituent, I'm modeling for people, for parents, for other constituents, what we need to have them do to have you guys hear their voice. So thank you. I wanted to brag on you.
Well, you know what? Thank you very much. And I want to say to you, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that you're talking about, that you want to model because you're a teacher. And that's really what teaching is. And, when I was in the classroom, one of the things that I loved doing was working with students, and particularly in developing leadership and those sorts of things. And I had the chance to sponsor organizations that were about leadership with kids. And you can define leadership in a lot of different ways. And a lot of times people attach leadership to titles. But what I always told the kids was, every time you walk in a room, it's a different place because of your presence. So are you making it better? Are you making it worse? You're not making it the same. But to be a leader really means to set an example that's worth following. And I want to thank you for doing that, just as a person, which is the most important way, but also in the education community. And that's a whole other issue, what you're talking about with 1A, 1B. And it's something that we've been spending a lot of the time, my staff and me, talking with people about, because that first, and if y'all don't mind me kind of hitting this real quick.
Oh, no, this is fantastic.
That first round of vaccines, was dedicated to the first responders, and then people 65 and older, and people with certain health conditions. Those two groups, 65 and older, and then when you merge in those other health conditions, those account for about 95% of the deaths. And so that's been the real focus. However, as we all know, we aren't there yet, even with that group. But you do have my commitment that, we've got to get our kids back in the classroom, and we've got to get teachers back in there that are comfortable. But I do encourage everyone on this call, if they are interested in the vaccine, to please go on and, if you're in Collin County or whatever county you're in, go on and get on that wait list, because that right now is the portal. And it is frustrating. We're really at the mercy of the number of vaccines that we get shipped from the federal government. Those numbers have not been particularly accurate for our ability to project. Collin County stands really ready to dispense efficiently and effectively, but we need the vaccines.
Right.
So for people that want them, and I also realize there are people that are not interested in the vaccine, and I want to protect their right as well to not face retribution for not taking the vaccine. So both of those stand true for me, and I'm very committed to it.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Good, thank you.
Thank you for letting me say thank you, because that was important.
We love that.
Thank you.
Give credit
All
where
right.
credit is
Hey,
due.
and don't forget, catch Dr. Good every Sunday,
Absolutely.
8 o'clock at the Ask Dr. Be Good show.
Love it.
8 a.m.
All right. Thanks,
Thanks,
Dr.
guys.
8
Good.
a.m.
Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Good. Good morning, Senator Paxton.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We are well.
Rocking and
How
rolling
is
and whatnot.
everything down in Austin going? I mean, I know that it's got to be different. It's our first time to get to talk to you. What's it look like down in Austin for you to do the state's work and the people's work? And what are you guys getting into right off the bat? Like, what's the big issues right off the bat?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing I would say is that Austin is a brighter place to me because it's only an hour away from Killeen, where my daughter Maddie and her husband Daniel and our new little baby grandson, baby Pax, live. So
I love it.
that's not politics and that's not policy, but he's just delightful. He's 7 weeks old now. So anyway, that is definitely a beautiful thing. But this is why we all do what we do, right? Because we care about the future. We care about future generations. And so I've got a very, very present and beautiful reminder about why it's important that we get things right. But, I would say traffic is lighter in Austin, which is, Austin's
shocking.
known for its terrible traffic. Yeah. So it's a little bit lighter, and that's reflected at the Capitol as well.
Interesting.
We have begun meeting in session. We came in and gavelled in on January 12th. There are phases, no matter what is going on in the world, there are phases to the legislative session. And the phase that we are in right now is the bill filing stage.
Right.
And so a lot of what goes on the floor at this point, anyway, is mostly ceremonial types of things. And so although we're hitting things kind of lightly on the floor, it's not stopping business being done. But we do have the committee schedule has been kind of backed up. I think they were hoping to let things the post-Christmas etc. spike that was expected, let that kind of settle down and dissipate a little bit.
Right.
But all of that to say, the main thing I'm doing right now is I'm continuing to file legislation. We filed 3 more bills yesterday, focused mostly on my 3 areas of expressed impact, which are education, human dignity, and the things that matter to my district that are unique to it, that have been brought to me by my constituents, et cetera. But I'm also on, yesterday we actually had first reading of the budget. So the budget has now entered the picture. And that is Senate Bill 1. That's the one thing that we are required to do constitutionally, is to pass a budget. So now everyone is sort of making their way through. It's bigger than the Bible. So
wow.
So it's about 8 inches.
Golly.
It is a big thing. And
wow.
So, we're all working our way through to look at that and see what's in there. The Finance Committee, which is chaired by Jane Nelson out of Denton County,
right,
has been working on that, of course, since the last session. Redistricting is the other thing that is a very large issue. We do that every 10 years. I'm on the committee. And, we want to, because of the COVID situation, it interfered with the regional committee hearings we would have normally had during the interim. So on Monday of this week, I got to participate in something rather historic, which was the first ever virtual testimony redistricting committee. So redistricting's not a standing committee, so the rules for it are a little different than the normal committees of business and commerce and natural resources, education, higher ed, et cetera. But what we did, this is actually allowing us to kind of catch up in a very efficient way. But what I wanted to say to all your listeners, and Dr. Good was talking about, participating, being involved, paying attention. We'll be redrawing the House district lines, Senate district lines, congressional lines, State Board of Education lines. And that will last for the next 10 years. So it's very important that we get public input, and the pandemic situation has interfered with that happening in the normal way. So what we're doing right now are regional virtual hearings. So we as a committee are meeting in the Capitol in person, and we are allowing testimony through virtual platform. So if you go to senate.texas.gov, you can watch the redistricting hearings. They're posted. I believe today's hearing starts at 1. And then I believe Thursday and Friday, it will be 9 o'clock. And next week, it will be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. If my memory serves right, please double check this.
Okay.
But you can see what region they're going to be hearing testimony from. And so I would just encourage your listeners to go on and watch one of the hearings to see what it looks like. And then to, if they're interested in submitting input or testifying, to register to testify on the day that impacts the DFW area, which will be Senate District 8. And I believe that is the 4th next week. But, we want to make sure we get that we have fair, legal, transparent process, and we get the lines right for Texas.
Now, Senator Paxton,
And
will
which
there
is
be
huge.
links on your websites as well if people wanted to go to your page and find that schedule?
You know what? That's a great question. I'm
sorry.
going to double check, and I think that's a great way. And let me give you my website, angelapaxton.com. That's my Senate website. And while we're kind of at it, Angela Paxton TX is my handle on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So any of those are places where you can kind of follow what we're doing. But I'm gonna go in and initiate that so that there is a link to the Senate webpage so people can go there easily. Thanks for suggesting that, John.
You're very
that's,
welcome.
That's a great suggestion. As a matter, and if you can let, because I know you've got a bunch of people following you on social media, and then put it out there on social media, because there are definitely people, especially in SD8, as early as a year ago, before the pandemic, we're already talking about redistricting. And want to give their input. So the thing is, now you don't necessarily have to travel to Austin. So there really is no reason, if you want your voice to be heard, it's almost in an odd way easier by doing these virtual things.
Yeah, it is interesting. And, I just would encourage people, it can be intimidating to realize you're testifying in a hearing for the House or the Senate or anything like that if you've never done it before. So I would just encourage you. We live stream all of those committee hearings. That's true for every committee.
Yes.
And so you can tune in. You can senate.texas.gov. There's a place where you can just live stream. You can see what committees are posted for that day, and you can watch. And you can see what it's like. And then if there's an issue coming up, those are always posted in advance. That's the idea of open government. And they're posted in advance so that if there's something that you're interested in that you'd like to be part of the input, you can.
Right.
And in redistricting, it's easier than ever before, really.
You talked about when there was going to be a bill filing end date. Explain that to our listeners. And I know you've got a bus to move, but so is that a date? Is that something that if I'm a constituent of yours and I've got an idea on a bill, what's my timeline on that?
That's a great question. So and we are in the process of we've already filed bills that came to us from constituents. So actually, I don't know the exact date off the top of my head. I'll get that to you, Kathy, so
Okay.
you can announce that to your
Okay.
listeners. But I believe in the last session, it was sometime in early March.
Right.
As I recall. And so, basically there's this deadline, and that's the last time we can file a bill. Your listeners need to know that most bills, it takes a long time to draft a bill because you've got to get the legal language right. And you want to submit a bill that's going to stand up in court, right? If it's ever contested or anything like that, regardless of what the topic is. And so, we're pretty near the end of realistic, I guess, getting something done by the end of the filing period. But if you do have an idea, I would encourage you to let us know, because even if we don't have time to get it rolling for this time, I mean, like I said, it takes a while to do.
Right.
So, and I like to really make sure that we're listening to all sides of something so that we get a robust bill that really does what it's meant to do, and is going to stand up in court if it's ever contested. It's interesting. Sometime I'd love to talk about kind of the phases of the session, because that's one of the things that's kind of interesting. Everyone right now, we're on the floor, but what's happening on the floor is very light. At the end of the session, it's the opposite. The committee's finished. They've voted everything out, and it's just like this nonstop machine on the floor, voting on bills. So I'd love to talk through kind of the timeline and the phases of the session.
Absolutely.
Well,
we'd appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I would love, and in the past we've tried to do that, and I would love for you to, because it's important for our listeners to understand how this process works. A lot of people didn't realize that many committees met during what they called an interim session.
Yep.
And that's where a lot of the hearings were held. A lot of work got done to get ready for the bill to come out in the session. So one of the big questions coming out of our listeners is, can the state of Texas, or will the state of Texas, do anything to push social media towards a publication, or is that strictly a federal issue?
Can you restate the question, John? I'm not sure I exactly understood what you.
So you know how social media has kind of gone rogue, where they just randomly are deciding now who can be on, who can't be on. And so the big question is, will there be a push for social media to become a publication where it's not this, hey, we get to hide behind this free speech thing, when in fact you are editorializing and you are publicizing? Is that more of a federal issue, or can the state of Texas do something about that?
Well, it is clearly a federal issue, but I can tell you there is a lot of conversation among my colleagues and myself about this very issue, because we are looking at, these are private businesses, and this is just not something that was, ever foreseen, that there could be something like this. But yeah, a newspaper is a business as well, right? But it has certain standards applied to it. Social media has not had those same types of standards applied to it. And so I think it's something that we need to look at the federal issue, but at the federal level. But we are looking at how can we address this in Texas as a state so that we can maintain some sort of free speech. This is a foundational part of what it means to be American, and certainly to be Texan. And it's a problem. And I'd also like to give an alert to your listeners, kind of playing off of this. I know I received a notification by text earlier this week, I guess.
Right.
And it was telling, it said that my accounts were going to be pulled off because they don't allow, I'm trying to think, like it said, like profanity or obscenity or blah blah. And of course I'm like going, okay, I'm not posting something like that, right? But it was like, it was a phishing scam. If you're PHISHING, and this is basically, this is where bad actors, they create a mock page. You click on the link, you think you're going to Facebook, and you log in thinking you're going to fix this issue, and it turns out they steal your information, right? So I recognize that was probably what it was and passed it along to some people. But watch out for things like this, because as people get upset about things, there are always people looking to exploit people's fear or anger or righteous indignation and do bad things, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
keep an eye out for that too.
Yeah,
Will be.
that's
Well, I
scary.
don't,
One of our listeners said, "I'm really glad that Senator Paxton's page hadn't been shut down. She's a Republican from Texas, and she still has her social media still has social media going. Awesome. So they're
Yeah.
happy to know you're still on.
Yeah, so and my
Thank you.
comment back to him was, we're all going to start having to hide because of the liberal social media takeover of 2020. You know, I mean, we're going to just have to cloak ourselves to be able to continue to get our message. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I don't
No, it
want
is
to take up
ridiculous.
any more of your time, because I know we are on a time crunch, and I don't want to wear this out, because I want you to come back, because we love talking with you and love hearing what goes
Well, you
on down
too.
in Austin.
All right, guys.
We'll see you next week. Thanks so much,
Okay.
Senator. Keep
Senate
up the good
Minute
work.
with Senator Angela Paxton.
Right.
Thank you, Senator Paxton.
Thank y'all.
That's great information,
Well,
and
it's
there's a
gonna continue to
lot
be
going
great.
on.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. I think what she's trying to say more than anything is make sure that you let your voice be heard. There's just no reason not to jump on a virtual hearing. And again, if you've never done this before and you're nervous about it, then watch the hearings. You can go on the Texas legislators page and Texas legislative session, and you can look up and watch all the different committee meetings. You can watch debate on the floor, everything. It's all there for you to see. So please take advantage of that, and then go out there. Okay, well, education committee, that's a huge committee that Angela sits on. Tell her what your thoughts are. Tell her, please don't take money away from our schools, or please do this during the pandemic, or please don't do this, or write this into legislation so if something like this ever happens again, we don't, the kids don't suffer. Redistricting, like she said, it only takes place every 10 years. And this determines, if your population has grown, do you get another state rep in your area? Do are you going to be drawn out of your
redistricting
Senate
is a
district?
big deal.
It's
Redistricting.
huge.
I mean, you
It's
could,
huge.
Eddie Bernice Johnson's district was the most gerrymandered congressional district. If you ever want to see protecting a seat, you just got to go and look at Eddie Bernice Johnson's seat.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. This thing looked like a half-cut jelly bean into a jellyfish coming around to one of those lava lamps.
Yeah.
Like little pieces of her district floating off. It was so hilarious. And so you definitely, redistricting is a game changer. And that's why in Texas,
Yes.
it's been so important we keep Republicans in control, so that we don't have this, we
don't have the state income tax and all the
right.
yeah. Well, and it's
And
interesting.
on top of other taxes.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a bajillion of them we can name. It's interesting you mentioned Eddie Bernice Johnson. So this was 2 redistricting sessions ago. I was pregnant with CJ, and I went to that was when you would go, I went to in Dallas to a live regional testimony for redistricting, and it was so funny because when I got seated, I was seated literally right behind her, so I got to hear everything she was saying to her staff. And then I was like, I knew exactly what to say and not to say when I got up. I was passing notes to my friends going, oh, they're going to talk about this, so we need to talk about this here. Pass this note down, But
Well-
that's how she's been in office so long. And another thing, JP, and this is something we're going to debate. Coach Quigley had asked for us to bring this up. A number of members of the crew have started posting about it on social media. And I think there are quite a few conservatives that have gone from, hey, term limits for Congress are we the people voting. I think people are changing their mind on that. And I would love to hear what the crew has to say about that. We need to do you need to do a big debate, set up a debate thing for us one day on the show.
And I can do that. We'll get some people, bring them in, and we'll
Would love
do a
it.
big debate on it.
Would love it.
And here's the thing, right? So you've got conservatives on 2 sides on this. Number one, you've got conservatives that say we don't need term limits, because then you're turning the government over to the bureaucrats, because bureaucrats don't have term limits. First of all, good morning, Jamie Cook. Welcome back. It's been a while.
Good
Hope everything's going well with you. So they say that the bureaucrats end up running the show. Bureaucrats have a tendency to have an entirely different perspective than liberals or conservatives. They're more of an entrenched government perspective. So there's a concern there, right? So if we go to term limits, then the representative that's been elected isn't really running the show.
And what he means by the bureaucrats, if you're new to this and new to all the political stuff, he's talking about the staff that gets entrenched, that gets in there for a long time, and then they want to protect their own turf and their own job and their own future security. So
Right.
it becomes something other than responding to we the people.
Absolutely. And so the second train of thought is we need term limits so that we don't have this entrenched representative that represents the people. And we need to get fresh blood in there. We need to get fresh ideas in there so we don't have the kind of things that have been going on during the presidency of Donald Trump. And you're seeing it now, yesterday, on the vote that Senator Rand put up, which was more of a test, which I thought was ingenious, by the way. So Democrats got 5 Republicans to cross over to vote to knock down the objection rather than voting party lines.
Yep.
But what was more interesting for me, and I think Senator Rand did this on purpose, or maybe he and McConnell had already talked about this, but McConnell all of a sudden changed his opinion. And instead of, hey, let's throw President Trump under the bus, it was more of a, I'm voting to support the objection because I think we're done putting President Donald Trump under the bus. So a lot came out yesterday, very, very interestingly. And again, term limits could be something that could have addressed a Mitch McConnell. You know, a Strom Thurmond. I mean, goodness gracious, that man was in office for 160 years.
95?
I think he knew Thomas
95
Jefferson.
years now. No.
I mean, I think he did. I think he had breakfast with John Adams, for goodness sakes. Just kidding. So, but I think it'd be good. I would love to have 2 crew members come up representing
And
2 different thoughts.
I would love that.
And debate.
And come on with us via Zoom, come in studio
in
with
studio or
JP and
Zoom.
I.
Yeah, and let's
Yeah.
debate. You know, like, Faye Curtis is saying, yes, let's debate on terms. So again, I just think that there's a lot that you have to be in perspective of what that term limits means. Does that mean that the entire crew walks out the door, the elected official and the hired staff? Or does it mean that the hired staff gets to stay behind and continue to push an agenda? Because you need guidance. I'm going to be telling you, you need guidance on the Hill. It is not one of those things you can just walk on and do the job. This is not.
It's not. Yeah, I think
Gary Cooper or whoever that was that went to Washington.
Mr. Smith goes to
Mr. Smith goes to
Washington.
Washington.
Yeah, not Gary Cooper. I'm blanking out. I can see his face.
Was it Gary Cooper
Somebody
or
help
Jimmy
me.
Stewart?
No, Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart.
Okay. I always get those guys
But that's the
confused.
thing. You any level of government. I mean, I'm sure you remember back when you were a JP, there was a learning curve. When I came in as a county commissioner, there was a learning curve. Heck, just learning the acronyms for the NTTA and RTC and all the different roads and all that kind of stuff, that you need a 6-month lesson just on that. So I get that you need people who are experts in that field. But then at some point when we have the same people in office and then representing those in office, then there's nothing fresh and new brought into perspective, I guess. And it's interesting. I mean, I can't wait to have this debate because myself, I've always been very, very, very strong against term limits. Just always have. But I find myself nowadays going, well, and this was before the presidential election. This has been the last few RPT conventions, Republican Party of Texas conventions, where I've been a delegate, where I've sat back and I've actually entertained arguments where before I didn't even listen. I was like, nope, not in favor of that. Always going to be against term limits because I think that's up to the voter. But we are in a different time. There are term limits for the president. I mean, was that the 22nd Amendment, I think, that brought about the 2-year or 2-term limit for the president of the United States? I don't know. I'll be very anxious to hear what the crew has to say about this because I'm now actually open to listening at this point, which is a huge paradigm shift for me after 30 plus years in politics.
You know, I remember when Newt Gingrich and the congressman from here, from the Denton County area, what was his name? When they put together the
Dick Armey.
Thank you,
Dick Armey, yeah. Congressman Armey, yeah.
When they came together and they were talking about term limits and we need to do term limits and and
This
so,
is when they had did the contract with America.
Correct, contract
and
with
everything,
America.
during Bill Clinton's time.
Correct.
Yeah.
This particular question comes up during the reign of a Democrat. And then when Republicans have the reign, we stop talking about term limits, or that number of people talking about it reduces dramatically. And so I've watched term limits. I've listened to term limits. And, again, my position is, unless I hear something new, and I'm not going to, is I am not in favor of term limits. I'm not. I'm in favor of the people being in charge of the choice at the ballot box.
Elections are term limits. So then if we, the people, if we're upset, you've got to get out. And it's not just in November. But it's like, well, I vote in November. Well, it depends on where you're voting as to how much of a difference that makes. Now, don't get me wrong. Your vote always counts, always makes a difference. But if you live in an area where the Democrats typically win 70-30, or just the opposite, the Republicans win 60-40, then in November it's pretty much a lock. You need to get out and vote during the March, in our case in Texas, the March primary. That's where your voice can be heard for both sides, for Republicans and Democrats. And if you want to make a change, start looking to see, if you're not happy with your current congressman or United States senator, start looking and saying who's going to run against them in March, and then get behind that person. So at some point, if you have term limits, and like I said, I'm just now, after 30 plus years, actually even listening to the other side's arguments on term limits. But again, you even before a change like that would happen, you need to look at who you're voting for, and you've got to research that, and you've got to be on top of it. And we don't have our primary turnout for both the Democrats and Republicans. JP, I'm trying to remember. I'll get a quote before we do this. For the Republican and Democrat primaries, the turnout's just so low. November turnout's already low, but in comparison to November, it's nothing.
Well, and in states like California, it's not like ours. It's a jungle election. And so everybody goes into a pot, and whoever gets the votes coming out, that's who gets to compete. So you may not have a single Republican make it out of the jungle, and it's Democrat versus Democrat. So, but again, going back to term limits, I am not a fan of term limits, and would love to sit and debate that and have that discussion. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I would love if I could term limit Nancy, Pelosi.
Well, and I'm always
and Chuck Schumer.
What are we always saying? Please, to the Democrats who have some common sense, if there are some of those folks left, and I know there are a few left. I've got a few of them who are friends of mine. Get her, and again, a Nancy Pelosi. You can't take, like Fred said. He goes, I knew where I used to live. He's like, I knew my vote wasn't going to count because the Democrat was going to win no matter what in November. Then that difference that is made for a Nancy Pelosi, you got to get her out during a primary. You've got to get a Chuck Schumer out. You've got to get these folks out during a primary. Here's the tough thing. The incumbent always has a little bit of an edge, and usually they've got a deep, 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 deep treasure trove of money. So,
and I agree. But again,
tough.
though, here's the thing. I truly and really in my heart believe that if you'll go out and put your work volunteerism where your mouth is, you can make a difference. And so the bottom line is that are we going to be lazy and we want to legislate term limits, or do we want to be proactive and get people out to volunteer to change what we don't like by replacing those who won't do what represents the majority will of the district? And so that's kind of where I'm at, but would love to debate. Would love to have two crew members come on and debate with us.
So volunteer if you're willing to come on, and you can come on via Zoom if you don't live here locally. Would love to hear thoughts on, and we'll do it. It's going to be fun. It's not going to be some serious, oh my gosh, rah, 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 finger wagging kind of a thing.
Maybe for a little bit.
But yeah, JP
I like to finger wag.
There you go. JP likes to finger wag.
I also like to do the boogie woogie. Bugle Boy and Company C.
Company B.
Oh, Company D.
B.
Company E.
So anyways,
and every time you do that, I'm going to do this.
And you're going to do another, and you're going to put another letter out there in the alphabet.
Yeah,
that's not Company B.
That's correct. Company F.
So I think it's a conversation worth having, but then like to friends of mine who come to me and are very frustrated. I had a girlfriend of mine call me the other night and she's like, what do I believe? What, is this true? Is this true? And she was so frustrated and so fed up. And so I was kind of, walking her through where she does have control and what we do have control over. One thing that if you are in the state of Texas, the Texas legislative session is happening right now. It only happens 6 months every 2 years. Call your state rep. Go to Who Represents Me online. Super easy. Type in your address and you can find out who all of your different levels of government representatives are. Let them know, I do not want this or I want this, because what they do, and I know I used these numbers when I was a county commissioner and we had controversial votes. I would literally take my emails and my phone calls and the meetings I had and I would tally up how many people had said they were in favor of this that were from my neck of the woods and how many were against. And I would say this is an overwhelming we the people saying, 75% of us want this, 25% of us don't. And that would impact how I voted because those are my constituents. So your legislators use those numbers from your phone calls, your emails, your faxes, your letters, and your testimony.
Fred said we should wag the middle finger more often.
Oh, Fred.
He didn't say that.
He's so saucy.
I said that.
Oh, okay.
But Summer Fox.
Oh, just no. He said no middle.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Summer
I thought Fred was a gentleman.
Summer Fox asks a great question. How can I volunteer? I just sent a message out that said,
Love it.
Kathy and I will get together.
Yep.
And we'll put together a little mini workshop.
Love it.
On how to get engaged, how to get involved.
Love it,
and
love it,
we'll do it right here on
love
JP,
it.
Kathy, and the crew.
Love it.
So, Summer, thank you for that. You're
Yep.
making Kathy and I brighter. We appreciate that.
You're making our day. Somebody asked.
Well, yeah. Well,
Well,
making it better, making us better.
Yeah, well, and
we're
you
going to have to be better.
And you always are. You and I are always real big on, helping empower people so their voice can be heard.
Absolutely.
So ask your questions. What do you want to hear from us? And we are more than happy to tell you. Most of us have school board, city council, and depending on what city you're in, mayoral elections in May.
But at the same
Get to know the candidates right now.
But at
and
the
get
same
behind
token, we want to make sure that you make your decision. I know that Kathy has a group of people that follow her that will ask her, who should I be looking at? I have the
You
same
have the
people.
same thing.
Same thing.
Yep.
People will reach out to me.
And sometimes they'll ask both of us, and they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I talked to JP. He said the same thing. I was just going to see if y'all agreed." Like, okay.
And sometimes we don't agree.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of this
we had
country.
a school board election that we
Yep.
didn't agree on. It
Yep.
wasn't that I didn't like her candidate.
Oh, and I love yours. I was
Right.
kind of hoping to see him on the ballot this time.
And we both want to make sure that the candidate that did not prevail in that race, please jump back in because he's a great candidate. And so, but we want you to go and research that
Yep.
for yourself so that way you can make a good decision on and then feel good about if your candidate wins. That you are a part of some change.
Yeah.
So, talking about change,
Yeah.
we have a lot of it coming our way. Bree, if you'll go ahead and throw that up on the screen for me, please. Fred, have a great day. He's got to run, he says. Fred, feel free to use the car unless you're running for exercise.
Oh my! Did Stan the man just walk in?
Yeah, that was him. Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Okay. Progressive commercial moment right here. That is JP turning into his dad. I literally could close my eyes, and that's what Stan would say that.
I think I saw your eye twitching, in fact, when I said
You
that.
did, because I'm like, what?
Hey, Bree, if you'll put that on the actual, can you put it on the actual feed out? So, there's a
goodness
lot
gracious.
of changes coming in our country, and we need to pay close attention.
Yes.
Summer, you ask, hey, how do we get involved? How do we volunteer?
Yep.
This is part of it. Part of it is knowing what's going on
Right.
in the world.
Yep.
And on here, if you'll look at this site with me, what you'll notice is you can also look at President Donald Trump's executive orders, Barack Obama's executive orders, George W. Bush, William J. Clinton, and it goes on and on and on. So that way you know what presidents have done in the past. But this highlights what's going on right now with jumping Joe Biden. And so...
Oh, nicknames.
Oh, they're all coming out.
Oh, you got a bunch of them.
As Gail pointed out, at this point in his presidency, Joe Biden has signed more executive orders than any other president. That's because he is on a crash course of trying to undo every single executive order that President Donald Trump did. Here's what's interesting. Executive orders really didn't become a forefront until the Bill Clinton, George Bush, Barack Obama era, where it was like, wait, where's all this coming from? Especially Barack Obama using executive orders heavily to control the federal government. And so it's interesting, and that's what an executive order is supposed to be for. It is to direct the employees and staff members that run the federal government. It's not legislation. It's not to be used to legislate. It's to take what is already there and put it out to work for what that president wants to do. So I highly recommend, and just to cover a couple of the top ones, his last one he signed January 22nd was to protect the federal workforce. Then he had the economic relief related to the COVID-19 pandemic, a sustainable public health supply chain, supporting the reopening and continuing operation of schools and early childhood protection or education providers, protecting worker health and safety, promoting COVID-19 safety in domestic and international travel, improving and expanding access to care and treatments for COVID-19. So on its face, when you read these, you might think to yourself, oh, these sound like these are good. Like, we do need this kind of thing. This is what the federal government should be doing.
Watch what you ask for, and watch which powers, as we the people, you are willing to turn over to the government.
So I would highly recommend you click on these because you can read them. They're not crazy long. If you look, you'll see that most of them are 3 pages. Some of them are 4 pages. Read what's in those. Yeah, the titles sound like they're pretty good. And then when you look at something like this, break it out into 3 dimensions. Don't just look at it on its face. Look at it on its face. Look at it on what impacts it's going to make on the opposite side. And then make sure you're always understanding what's floating in between. What does this thing really mean for both sides, and why are we doing it? And that'll start you off, Summer, being a good volunteer, is educating yourself on what's going on, understanding what's going on. And if you don't understand something, reach out and ask people, because I have to ask people. I have called many a state rep, many a state senators, many a U.S. rep, and said, hey, what does this mean exactly?
Yeah. If there's language you're not sure on, which a lot of times, unfortunately, and this is at all levels of government, a lot of the legislative type wording is confusing by nature. The way it's written, sometimes it seems like double talk or, a double negative. Anyways, it can be very confusing. Don't be afraid to call somebody. If you get to the point where you call your congressional office on a regular basis, you've got an opportunity to, maybe there's a legislative aide who you can say, hey, you know what, can I put you on speed dial? And as I go through these, can I call and ask? Usually, and if they're not, Van Taylor's office, Congressman Taylor's office, Johnny on the spot, have never seen anything. They are on top of any issue you call about right away. If they can't answer it immediately while you're on the phone, they will circle around and get back to you. So that's an office that you can call, and you can say, I'm from Congressional District 3. Here's my question about this, and somebody will get back to you literally within 24 hours. Now, if you call your congressional district or your congressional office or your state rep's office or your state senator's office, which you don't have to worry about here with our own Senator Paxton, they get back to you right away, as Dr. Good was saying. But if you call and you leave a voicemail or you send an email and maybe you get thanks for your email, we appreciate you, and then you get crickets, that's when, during a primary, you need to find out who's running against that person, because there's a problem if we, the people, don't get a response.
Well, but also make sure you are fully versed on who it is you are supporting in opposition.
Yep.
Because sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get worse than what you had.
Yes.
Just
sometimes
saying.
It's the lesser of two evils.
So,
because a lot of good people. It's tough running for office. You've run for office. I've run for office. It's not an easy gig.
No.
You literally put yourself up to be just shot down when you're at the grocery store. I've had people come up to me in the grocery store and I can't believe I ever voted for you. Okay, well, thank you. Can I get the milk? So it's not an easy gig, but look for good candidates or step up yourself and run.
Absolutely.
You know?
And so I've sent you in the feed the website that you can go to look at all 19 executive orders and make yourself aware of what the president is actually doing and what he is saying.
And on a future show with Dr. Good, something she and I talked about on her show this past Sunday, and she's going to talk about it on one of our shows when we've got time, which there's always cutting, or breaking news in education, so we have a hard time getting to it. But we're going to be talking about specifically Joe Biden's education plans. And here's the thing, some of these things sound great. Like there's a thing about having more mental health workers, more counselors, more people to deal with, the mental issues that are going on in schools today. And it sounds like a great idea. Where's the money tree?
Right.
I just wonder, where are you getting the money from?
Right. Well, absolutely.
Is gas going to be $9 a gallon?
Well, gas is going to go up because one of the things that's happening right now is this whole I want to be a part of the climate control world.
Oh.
And suspension of drilling for 60 days.
Help me.
Suspension of all licenses that have been issued on federal lands for drilling and for oil resources to be pulled off. All kinds of bad things. Watch your gas prices are about to go to where they were 3 years ago, where we're paying $3.69 a gallon for gas. Welcome to California. You have been California-ized and New York-ized as well. So interestingly enough, I would be remiss in not talking about the pending impeachment trial as it approaches. And what's interesting, again, I go back to now the fact that Senator Rand Paul put up this huge objection, which, and again, I haven't read the part. I need to read this part of the Constitution. But he says that when you're not holding office, there is no impeachment. It's something you do while someone is holding office. And so I'm wondering.
Which was my thing. I'm like, hey, and have you noticed, squirrel real quick, have you noticed, and I know you don't watch TV, but you get lots of news feed stories.
Correct.
I'll even, if my husband has the news on or has, one of the news channels on, people are still literally, they can't let go of Donald Trump. They cannot stop talking about President Trump. It's like they're so obsessed. He's not even on Facebook or Twitter or anything right now. And he is still taking up so much rent in the liberal media's head that it's crazy. Have y'all noticed that as a crew? Have y'all noticed that? Okay.
Right.
Go back to you, John.
Okay.
Back to you.
So the key is that we're looking for 17 senators to cross over to convict. Well, they only got 5 to try to knock down Senator
Rand Paul's
objection. Joe Biden has come out and even said that it's not going to happen. Impeachment is not going to happen because there's not going to be 17 senators. On an exclusive interview in the West Wing just for CNN, which again, look at the shift here.
Oh, the irony.
We are polarizing on both sides. Shame on all of us, right? Because this is what's going to tear down the country is this polarization.
Well, we're not a news show, so we like to give our opinion. It's all for entertainment.
I'm not talking about JP, Kathy, and the crew. I'm talking about what we're doing as parties, what we're doing as in politics. We're only going to give exclusivity to CNN for a basic comment on the impeachment trial. Why isn't that something you just do in the White House briefing, or why aren't you on the press conference somewhere? Anyways, my point is that in this one-on-one interview, again, exclusively, which this is not breaking news here, he just doesn't believe that the Senate will convict President Donald Trump because there's not going to be enough people coming over. He feels like
this is a Nancy Pelosi thing.
Correct.
Too.
He's like, well, if we had 6 more months of him being in office, then maybe that might happen. But it's just not going to happen. But then he says in the other side of his mouth, this does need to happen. Now, what's funny is in the CNN interview, he says, even if this pushes back my committee appointments and the cabinet, I'm okay with that because this needs to happen. But then on other news channels, he's saying, we need this to go away. This has got to be taken care of. I need my committees put together, my cabinet put together, and this is delaying all of that.
This is that double talk because he is an entrenched establishment politician who is used to talking out of both sides of his mouth, isn't used to the fact that everybody can get anything you've ever said in the last 5 minutes and put it out online. It's he's used to this. He plays the political game. How do you think he got rich off of being an elected official?
Right.
How do you think his family got
Super rich.
off of exactly out of
Offering
being, yeah.
countries and pipelines access to him through his son. For $1 million, you can see my dad. Okay, and not like that's going to
The
change.
big guy.
Yeah, the big guy.
Yeah, the big guy.
You know, and so, but then it's funny, he'll say he doesn't endorse impeachment. But then this needs to happen. Well, do you endorse it or do you not endorse
Again,
it?
double talk, because in the past, we've been patted on the head as we the people, like, oh, they're not going to, I'm going to say this for this group and this for this group, and then everybody's going to be happy. It's going to be all good. I'll get reelected, whatever. Now people are paying more attention, and they're like, wait a second, you just said this over here, 2 days ago. Well, which is it?
Yeah. Bottom line is this, is that these guys can't figure out what they want to do. There's no putting the country back together. We're going to hold this impeachment trial at the expense of the taxpayers, and we know it's not going to prevail anything. You're not going to prevent him from running for office in 4 years. And so this is just a big old hickey on the neck of Congress again, and now the executive branch, because they can't figure out what it is they think that should happen. And so it's like, seriously, people? I mean, it is an infatuation with trying to destroy President Donald Trump's name. And here's my thing. The guy does enough damage to himself. Just let him be retired from being the president at this point. Deal with it in 2 years if he's going to come back and run.
Yeah, if he comes
I
back,
mean-
and it's almost like they're so afraid that there will be such an outpouring in 4 years for him to run again. And I go back to Nancy Pelosi has let Donald Trump have so much free space in her head. He is no longer president, but he still takes up rent in her head. And so everybody's still obsessed with him. And they are, and they're going to be. So, you know what? I mean, look, the man has been, taken unfairly, in my humble opinion, off of Twitter, off of Facebook. And then all of a sudden, you still have people talking about him. Well, okay, if your guy won and he's president, then why are you still talking about President Trump?
Exactly. So here's the deal. You ready for this? You ready for this? It is time for I ain't got no time for that.
Oh, no.
Because guess what, President Joe Biden? We the people, we don't have no time for that. We need you to get busy and handle the business at hand. Put President Donald Trump behind us. Be the president. Act like the president. Do your job for 4 years.
He's not strong enough for that.
Well, you know what? Grow some, because it's time.
Well, you've been 47 years in, in D.C. holding office. You would think again, it's just, these are the reasons why those of us who supported Trump would not even entertain supporting Biden. First of all, his the issues and where he stands on those. And JP, I just sent you something that, boy, I think this is going to light a fire under you.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, just wait.
It's not going to take much.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that he's going to say it's going to be like one of those go along to get along kind of a thing. It's going to be when it's convenient. Right now he's saying, well, the past administration didn't tell the states how many vaccines were coming out, at a time, and so they couldn't plan ahead of time. My goodness, it's a miracle, and I give all the credit in the world to President Trump and the folks in the science, industry who developed these vaccines. It's a miracle that we're not even a year from when we started having shelter in place and started wearing masks, and all of a sudden, and we've got a vaccine. I think we should be extremely proud, and you should never throw an administration under the bus that was able to push through like President Trump and his administration staff was, and push and work with these companies to get these vaccines. It's a miracle that the vaccines are already available. But again, it's going to be convenient because Biden's going to be using him as an excuse for anything and everything.
shortfalls.
Yeah. So, you just can't have it both
So,
ways.
Bree, play the signature. I ain't got no time for this.
And we've got to promote. I feel like we need to be promoting her barbecue sauce whenever we play this.
I don't know about that, but
Because can we legally use that?
oh gosh, yes, it's out there in the free world. It's one of those free world things. It's like, I ain't got no time for this. This Joe Biden business, taking care of executive orders like that. I mean, do your job, move forward. Because we ain't got no time for this. You know what I'm saying? Bree's like, I just can't handle this. I'm killing her. All right, so that's enough. See,
Yeah, please, that's enough,
we've actually
yeah.
got a small clip of that we'll need to. I'll have to get it to you so you can play that. Just that little clip that it's on and off. All right, talking about no time for that. How about Budweiser and others not advertising with the Super Bowl?
Oh, why not?
They're boycotting the NFL.
Interesting.
not be
What
a-
are their reasons for boycotting?
Well, that's for another show. We only have about 10 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm going to
Okay.
drop that for not for Friday, but for Monday's show
Okay.
when we talk about more NFL releases. But one of the things that I wanted to move that to was the fact that Guinness has decided that they are going to advertise
Yes.
with the Super Bowl. And I want to release
Guinness,
this.
which I think is it's like coffee beer. It's so thick and dark, and
You just take a
it's like
spoon and you drink it. You know, once you drink one of those, you're ready to take a nap. But Jesus' team,
Notre Dame
Dame, they have signed a
contract.
with Guinness for $7 million
Woo!
to be the beer provider for Notre Dame. Can we play? I sent you an email. If we
Whoa.
could play that YouTube. So this is
Woo!
Joe Montana has become the spokesperson for Guinness beer.
Genius.
Well, Joe
I'm
Montana
he's,
for sure.
I'm sure he's taken that to the bank.
I'm sure, right? And so I'm going to play this commercial for you. Well, I'm not going to. Bree's going to play this commercial for you, actually. We're going to play this commercial for you. And this is going to be something that you're going to see similarly in the Super Bowl as they start to release some of the Super Bowl ads. And so, Bree, if you want to put that on the screen and turn our volume up on that. But who doesn't love Joe Montana?
Oh, love him.
I love Joe
Yeah.
Montana. So here we go. This is the kind of thing you're going to see coming out on the Super Bowl. Again, this is a little bit older commercial, but it's going to be the same exact thing. So when Bree gets ready to gear that up and play it, we'll play that.
2 seconds left to play. Clock will start on the snap. So it's all come down to this.
Of course, you see him wearing a Notre Dame helmet.
Yep. It's baby then.
And look at the slowness of the Guinness being poured.
Wait for it.
They're waiting for it. I do love this commercial, by the way.
Wait for it.
Is this an existing commercial, or
Yeah,
this is
was
what's going
October
to be played during the
2020.
Super Bowl?
October
Okay.
2020. This is
Wait for it.
this is what you're going to be looking at.
Ooh, that's loud.
Montana.
Wait.
The whole Irish pub. It's
And it's a touchdown. A touchdown.
Good things come to those who wait.
Oh, that's because it's such a thick beer.
Right.
So it's so.
well, you got to wait for the head to develop.
Okay, so is he going to be? So is he spokesperson again for Guinness
Guinness,
beer? So he'll be doing another. Was this a Super Bowl commercial back
No.
in the day? This was just
No.
a regular commercial.
October 28, 2020 is when this commercial came
Okay.
out.
Okay.
As they get ready to gear up for the Super Bowl, because Joe Montana will be featured in a commercial for Guinness during the Super Bowl. So stuff is starting to roll out. Of course, I've already told you this. I like the commercials almost better than the game. Because
Oh, well, a lot of times
the
when it's
commercials are fantastic.
like when it's teams that like are mortal enemies of the Dallas Cowboys, I'll just watch the commercials.
Yeah.
And maybe halftime, depending on who's halftime. Who's halftime this year? I forgot.
I'll have to look it up.
Somebody help us out on that, 'cause I know they've announced it.
I don't know.
I'm trying to think.
I couldn't tell you.
who the halftime.
But some of the
person
other ones
is.
that you will not see, Coca-Cola will not be a part of the Super Bowl.
Okay, I want to know.
Pepsi brands will not be a part of the Super Bowl
And
either.
so, again, are these boycotts or these financial decisions?
Well, this is the lead, and again, we'll talk about this more next
Yes,
Monday.
yes.
But the lead
When is
ad
the Super Bowl?
that's come out is that's February 7th.
Oh, well,
Budweiser
it's
becomes
just around the corner.
Yeah.
A week from Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Budweiser becomes latest Super Bowl commercial stalwart to sit out this year's
Interesting.
broadcast, and so they're taking a pass. They announced Monday that it's foregoing its annual Super Bowl commercial slot for the first time in 37 years, joining fellow juggernauts Coke, Pepsi, Hyundai.
Because Pepsi always, like, they used to have Michael Jackson. They had, wasn't it Cindy Crawford that did the big commercial where, she was in shorts and the young kids were kind of or teenage boys were looking at her from afar. Did you see who the Super Bowl entertainment is by any chance? Oh, it's the Weeknd.
It's the Weeknd. That's right. We
That's
talked
right.
about
We've
that.
talked about that. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So-
And now my kids are big fans of that.
Well, I'm
that
just
band.
hoping the weekday will show up too.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Stan.
That was extra.
That was Stan.
I'm feeling woke this
Yeah,
morning.
that was Stan. No, that's
So,
not. That's
Here's
that's
what
not
the
woke.
juggernauts are saying. Well, due to the financial uncertainty of COVID-19 pandemic, we're just not going to invest in that. Instead, we're going to reallocate our monies to the media, reallocating the media investment to raise awareness about COVID-19 vaccine throughout the year in a partnership with the Ad Council.
And again, private company. That I get that. I wonder if they also.
It's one of these.
Yeah. I wonder.
one of those.
It is. I wonder if. And let me say this the right way. I wonder if these companies are thinking because the NFL viewership has gone down and down and down. Each year the viewership just is trending down, and especially during this pandemic. And there were folks who were upset, like myself, when players were kneeling that very first game during the anthem. Then I wonder if they're thinking may not be enough bang for the buck, and I get it. Then it becomes a business decision if the audience is not going to be as ginormous as it usually is. Plus, I wonder if they're also thinking, and this is another one of those unknowns that we'll be able to talk about afterwards, just like, Valentine's Day is going to be different this year. Whereas I know we used to be real big on going over to people's houses, going to Super Bowl parties, or going to, to a bar and meeting friends and going early and making a whole day of it. Not going to be doing that this year. The people who usually have a Super Bowl party maybe aren't having a Super Bowl party.
I think they're going to still have Super Bowl parties.
Oh, they will. There will be,
But I don't think the
maybe
numbers
not
will
as many.
dwindle.
You don't think they'll dwindle?
In fact, I think you'll see more because there's fewer people at the Super Bowl. And I think that people are going to rent spaces potentially to create social distancing.
I'll be anxious to see what people do. And so maybe they're anticipating there will be a drop in viewership. And so it starts being a numbers game. If you're going to only have X amount of million plus people watching the game versus the, 10 times more from 5 years ago, it becomes a business decision. Do you spend $7 million on an ad?
See, I love your optimism. I do.
What? Oh, optimism for what?
Well, that's optimistic because what I'm talking about is that I don't see viewership down. I see viewership spiking because fewer people can be at the game, number one.
And I'll be anxious to see that.
Number two, I think, again, I go back to, and this is where I guess I'm a pessimist, I think that Budweiser, Pepsi, Coke, Hyundai, those guys are saying, you know what? We don't want to be attached because we think you've taken a hit on your character as the NFL with what you have done and how you've done it.
But see, some of these companies though are,
and they're not going to advertise.
It strike me as more liberal companies,
Oh,
and
not
I don't,
Budweiser.
and I don't think they're some of them, just some of them, strike me as, and that's one of the best Super Bowl commercials ever any year, are the Budweiser commercials with the Clydesdale horses. Those I love those. So I wonder if. For example, Super Bowl last year had 99.9 million viewers. So I'm going to take a screenshot of this because I want to see how many viewers we have during the pandemic. Anyway, so I wonder if because I view some of these companies as more liberal leaning in the national anthem stuff. That's not what they're upset about, like the rest of us are.
See, I think that there's been a hit. I think that the NFL has taken a hit. I think viewership is down in general for the NFL. I think people playing fantasy football is down, and it's not because of the pandemic. It's because of the stance that the NFL has taken across the board on many things.
And I would like that to be the case.
I do
with some of the
believe
liberal
that.
countries.
And here's why I say that. Their excuse is, well, the uncertainty of the financial markets with COVID-19 hitting. But yet we're going to go ahead and drop the same amount of money into the Ad Council for COVID-19 vaccine awareness.
Interesting. So the Super Bowl in 2019 had 98.2 million. So actually there was a spike or an increase last year. So I'm taking screenshots of all this so I can remember all this, just like all the alarms that I set on my phone. So I'll be anxious to see, what does viewership look like? And are people just first of all, I think viewership went up just because, and I know you wanted your Packers to win and nothing against the Packers, but I think when it became Tom Brady against Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl, I'm watching the game now. Whereas I don't know that I would have watched it otherwise. I mean, I'm sure I would have had it on in the background or whatever, but I'm watching the game now because I want to see, a 43-year-old, quarterback of crazy talent and a 25-year-old Super Bowl with crazy talent go head to head.
Well, and again, you may see numbers go up. I don't think their decision was based on that. I think their decision was based on who drinks.
Oh, well, they had to make this decision way before that we knew the outcome of the
Yeah.
game. I mean, you've got to get your name in on a Super Bowl ad way before.
Budweiser
Yeah.
may not have to, but for sure, no doubt about it. But here's the thing.
Is there a
right?
space for us to advertise now?
I know, right? Maybe.
$7 million. Yes.
But in piping in, Tio Loco said the woke culture. Nathan Wynn says NFL should have taken a hit.
The robot Gale.
And Nathan Wynn says, as with the NBA, and I agree.
Oh.
I believe the NBA. I mean,
NBA,
it's like,
I know is taking a hit.
well, I know they
Yeah.
have. I mean, it's like the ABA now. I mean, nobody's watching anymore.
Yeah, it's just well, but let me tell you, the NHL, which the Stars have won all 3 of the first 3 games.
Well, and I was going to jump to that, but we're out of time.
Yeah.
I'm starting to hear the music in my ears.
So good for the NHL. NHL has got. I see more of my friends who used to post about the Mavericks or the Cowboys. They're all about the Stars now.
And I get it.
Interesting, just interesting.
I like the way the NHL has done this, and they've stayed politically neutral and out of it. And they should have. It's a sport.
And with the pandemic, they've just handled it very, very well. I don't know. Maybe that's just the nature of the sport. I don't know. Maybe getting out on that cold ice kills COVID. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to reach out.
Sherbrell's like Kathy.
I'm
You're
going to
not
reach
a
out
doctor.
to the
Don't
local
talk like
PR
one.
guys and gals over at Budweiser, Pepsi, and Coke, because we've got
Would
Pepsi
love
right
to hear.
here in our
Yep,
backyard.
we do,
So,
yep.
and see what we can get. I think their statement's going to stay very neutral, but I think everybody knows what's really going on. So, anyways, with that being said,
I'd like to see what they say.
have a blessed Wednesday. We will see
love
you
you. We'll
on
see you
Friday.
Friday.
Don't forget to tune in.
Faye Curtis back in studio.
On Friday.
Miss Texas Ambassador
Busy
on
Friday
Friday.
for Kathy
Real busy
Buckley.
Friday. Real busy
But
Friday.
we've got a show coming on.
Dun, dun, dun,
That's
dun,
right.
dun,
Thursdays
dun.
at 7 o'clock.
Woohoo!
And the show's name is Tea Talk.
I love it.
With Bree.
With our
I'll tell you
own
what.
Chambrielle.
So tune in.
So proud of her.
Tune in Thursday
So
night,
proud
7
of
o'clock.
her.
Don't forget to tune in also for the replay of Dr. Be Good show at 6 o'clock on Thursdays. And then don't forget to catch everything on Friday. We have a huge lineup on Friday for you as well,
We
highlighting
do.
the pink cloud. And
Yes.
so
Yep.
then we go to the weekend and we start with
Kilroy's
Kilroy's Conversation.
Conversation.
All right, everybody have a blessed day. We'll
Love
see
y'all.
you
Have a
on
blessed day.
Friday.